Okay, now we're going to move into audio effects. Audio effects can be a bit more complicated because, first of all, because there are just more of them. But second of all, because we're working with frequency domain and there's a lot we can do with frequencies. Um, However, we're not only working with frequency, we're also working with time and we're also working with dynamics. So, for that reason, what we usually do is divide up all our effects into kind of three buckets. Any effect can really be categorized as one of these three things. And those three things are frequency effects, things that mess with the frequency, EQs, things like that. Time effects, things that mess with time, delays, things like that. And dynamic effects, uh, things that mess with volume. We call volume dynamics. So dynamic effects are things that mess around with volume. A compressor is probably the best example of that. So that's kind of typically how we do it. However, Live 11 has kind of changed the way we talk about effects just a little bit. If we go into audio effects, what they've done in Live 11 is switch everything around so that everything is categorized in these eight or so 8 folders. So they've kind of categorized them into these 8 folders for us, which are a little different than those three categories that I like to talk about effects in. And that's okay. I was told that this categorization scheme was somewhat controversial around Ableton HQ, but it does work. It does help you find things a little quicker. Um, and each of these folders can really be included in what I was just talking about. So, drive, it's going to be like distortion, things that affect tone. Those are really going to be frequency effects. Dynamics are obviously going to be dynamic effects. EQs and filters are also going to be frequency effects. Modulators could be frequency or dynamic effects. Performance is largely going to be time effects. Pitch and modulation is going to be frequency effects. Time and space is going to be time effects. And utilities are kind of going to be none of those. Utilities are going to be some extra odds and ends. So, what I think I'll do um, is go through each of them in these categories, just so that we kind of stick to Ableton's scheme here. And we'll start with drive. So in each of these folders, we have a bunch of effects, and each of those effects have a bunch of presets. Okay, so for the next while, for essentially the rest of this class, we're going to go through all of the effects and what they do. Now, fair warning, I'm not going to go through every single knob and every parameter of each effect. We're going to go over kind of what the effect does and some of its key properties. The best way to learn every single knob and button in the effect, if that's what you want to do, is to put it on something and experiment with it and explore. You can certainly find documentation for it online in the live manual or other places if you really want to know, but hopefully I'm going to give you most of what's in every single effect. So you should know how to use every single one. Okay, so without further ado, let's dive into our drive effects and start with amp.